Hello everyone. In this video we are going to look at auditing an echocardiogram report 6.1. So if we look at our documentation, our patient is coming in for an echocardiogram. The findings are, it states, by means of 2D and M-mode echocardiography. Cardiac chambers, the left atrium was mildly dilated and measured 4.4 centimeters. There was no evidence of atrial thrombi. The aortic root dimensions were within normal limits. The left ventricle was normal in size. There was mild concentric left ventricular hypertrophy. There was severe diffuse hypokinesis. The apex was kinetic. The overall ejection fraction was about 15 to 20%. The right atrium was mildly dilated. The right ventricle was normal in size. The valves, the mitral valve has mild fibrocalcific changes, but more so the posterior leaflet with mitral annulus calcification. The mitral valve excursion was adequate. There was aortic sclerosis without significant stenosis. The tricuspid valve was grossly normal. The pulmonic valve was not well visualized. Then it says Doppler and color Doppler interrogation reveals the presence of severe mitral and tricuspid insufficiency. The calculated right ventricular systolic pressure was 42, and the conclusion is that our patient has severe left ventricular dysfunction, severe mitral and tricuspid insufficiency, and 3 mild to moderate pulmonary hypertension. The recommendations are digitalization, afterload reducing agents, diuretics, and number 4, if the patient is labeled, the bilateral heart catheterization should be considered. Although the left ventricular function is severely reduced, part of that could be due to the fact that she has been tachycardic for a long period of time, i.e., can be tachycardia induced. Our instructions, one of the codes is not reported for this case. Indicate the missing code. So this documentation is telling us that our echocardiography code 93306 with modifier 26 is assigned for the procedure, and then our diagnoses I51.9 and I08.1 with one code missing. So go ahead and take your coding manuals. Let's verify that the codes that are there are correct. So we're going to start with our CPT manual and go to 993306. 993306 says echocardiography, transthoracic real-time with image documentation 2D includes M-mode recording when performed complete with spectral Doppler echocardiogram and with color flow Doppler. So let's go back to our scenario, and ours did have Doppler and color Doppler interrogation. So that is correct with the modifier 26. Remember to show just the professional side, so just for the radiologist who read this report. Now let's look at our diagnoses. If you want to open up your ICD-10 book, the first diagnosis was I51.9. So I51.9 is heart disease, unspecified. So if we go back to our documentation, that says it's for the ventricular dysfunction. So if we looked up ventricular dysfunction in our code book, so open up your code book. Okay, let's go to dysfunction. And it's at the very end, dysfunction ventricular. Let me make that bigger. And it gives us the code that's assigned, the I-51.9. So we know that one's correct. And now let's go to our second code, which if we go back to our scenario, is I-08.1. So let's go back to our I's. I-08.1. And rheumatic disorders of both mitral and tricuspid valves. So let's go to our scenario, and severe mitral and tricuspid insufficiency. So that is correct as well. So what code are we missing? Well, if we look at number 3, mild to moderate pulmonary hypertension, we do not have a code for that. So again, open up your manual. We're going to go to the index to hypertension. So go to H, to hypertension. Okay, hypertension, and then it was pulmonary. And we're given code I-27.20. So now flip to our I's to verify. Remember, we always look up in the tabular, verify in the, or look up in the index and verify in the tabular. So I-27.20, pulmonary hypertension unspecified. Pulmonary hypertension not otherwise specified. So if we go back to our scenario, mild to moderate pulmonary hypertension. So not otherwise specified would match because there's not a specified code for mild to moderate. So that is the missing code. Now if we want to go over to nuance clintegrity, bring that up. Remember, to start a coding, we go to the coding tab. And then we're going to go over to the code books. Now you could look up all the codes. Again, let's just start by looking up the one that we're missing. So we want to make sure we're looking at the CM. And our code was the hypertension pulmonary. And we're going to hit search. So there's hypertension, and we want to scroll down till the P's to pulmonary. So there's our I-2710. If we click on that, it takes us to the tabular, which now we have to break it down by the actual tabular we want. I-27. So we click on that, go down to I-27, and ours was I-2720. So click on that. Here we go. Pulmonary hypertension unspecified or includes pulmonary hypertension not otherwise specified. So we know that's correct. Again, you can come over here and enter your codes once you have what you want. So our first code was the I-51.9. We also had the I-08.1. And now our I-27.20. And then we can enter our procedure, which if we go back to our scenario was 93306 modifier 26. And then the modifiers come here. I did not enter that right. 93306. I have a typo. And then our modifier. If we click right there, we can hit this drop-down menu to pick our professional component. So we can come up here to edit our patient, we want to change it to outpatient. Again, you can put in the medical record number, the account number, all those fields if you want to get rid of the coding status incomplete that it tells you. But you can always double check here to see if one of these is a coding edit or if it's just missing information. So all of these are just missing medical record information, right? So we're going to just view those and then close them. Again, if you want to enter all that stuff, you can, but the codes are all there, and that's how we audit using Nuance.